All right, we're live. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. I have to say, Mike, we get mustacheless Mike back. So
Yeah.
Movember is over. You want to talk real quick, just for the listeners, how successful it was for us?
Best year
For you,
we've
not
had.
for me.
Yeah. Raised a ton of money for men's health in general. I think we more than doubled last year what we were doing. So really appreciate everyone who donated. I think a lot of awareness was raised. I did cheat. For Thanksgiving meals, I have a newborn, and for my first Thanksgiving photos with her, I couldn't do just the mustache. So I started to grow back everything a little early. But such a fun time. Just brings all of us together, and I really enjoyed it. So really successful year for us.
Has some successful composite pictures too of everybody that participated at Carson.
I think if you scour LinkedIn long enough, you will see, I think Dan Tobin posted a picture of the Carson team and all the guys who we all got together for one photo with some mustaches.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Fantastic.
All right, well, let's get into the meat of today. So we have two special guests, internal. This is one we have talked about doing for quite a while. So we've spent a lot of time in the past on deal sourcing, on the anatomy of what goes into a transaction. We've talked about transition of assets, but we haven't gotten into, I think, two real key areas. And I would also say these are two of the secret weapons we have here at Carson. So one, the emotion that goes behind a sale. In many cases, these are serial, successful entrepreneurs that have built something that is far more valuable than they ever anticipated, and they are now navigating the complexities internal to what that means to go through a sale. So that we're going to use Alex for. And then Kelsey, all the questions and unrest that can come up from being a stakeholder or a G2 advisor that's a part of this business. You hear the owner's going to sell, and I think naturally one of the first things that goes through your head is, am I okay? Do I still have a job? Do I still have a future? And one of the things we've taken a lot of pride of around here at Carson is that we are creating additional opportunity for these folks. So your ability to step into one of these offices and put to rest some concerns, generate excitement, and get those people moving in the right direction so that we can pull off the 30-day move, which we're going to talk about here, has been remarkable. And we've heard multiple times that you've been a highlight of that on-site meeting. So I'm excited to get into that. So before we get into the specific questions Mike and I have for the two of you, do you guys want to take a moment just to introduce yourself and your background and how you got to Carson? And then we'll go into your specific roles around an integration here in a couple of minutes.
Alex, I will let you lead.
Well, it's a privilege to be here. Thanks for inviting us. Thanks for having us on. And we're really pleased to have this opportunity to be with your viewers and listeners today. I'm Alex Rodawig, Managing Partner at Carson Group, and I've been with the company since January of 2019. This is my, believe it or not, 37th year in the investment business. And I've been at a regional investment firm prior to Carson. I've been at a wirehouse prior to Carson. And then I spent 7 years running a private company and actually took it through a complex sale back in 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018. And so it kind of gives me a unique perspective, I think, which is really interesting for what we're doing at Carson today, because I've been on the same side of the table as prospective sellers who are looking to us to partner and be part of our acquisition strategy. And so it gives me a unique perspective to be able to advise and help them as they navigate through the period between signing the letter of intent to partner with us and going through the close period. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure, as well. So,
thanks, Alex. And just to clarify too, this was not a small sale or a small company.
No, it was not. No.
How many employees did you have?
Roughly 5,500 employees worldwide, and an 85-year-old firm. And it was a privilege to have the opportunity to lead that organization along with others. And I was one of the principal people involved in going through the due diligence, financial, legal, all of those things to position the company to be sold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very unique background in this space. So we appreciate having you. All right, so if Alex is the veteran in the investment business out of the four of us, Kelsey, you're the veteran here at Carson. So you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Kelsey Ruwe, Chief Talent Officer here at Carson. Yes, I've spent nearly 18 years here at Carson. I was here when we were a sub-billion-dollar RIA, and now we are a $50 billion plus national firm. So for me, my experience has been within Carson. However, I've got to witness and see the end-to-end view of what it takes to really scale an organization. So I've really worked across every operating model, from the retail side with Carson Wealth, which is where I started, with practice management, our 1099 partner space, and now really deeply entrenched into our Carson Wealth offices. So really understand what it takes to work from a small firm. I think I was maybe employee number 13 to now, we're 600 plus employees, 30 plus offices across Carson Wealth. And so I feel like this has led me to where my focus is today, because this background allows me to understand small firms going through a lot of change, even though we didn't go through an acquisition, but Carson has been evolving since the day I started, right? And always expanding. And so it's really given me that true front row seat to organizational growth. And I think that allows me to really put myself in their shoes when they're joining Carson and seeing that growth for themselves.
It's really unique. And I can just say, I've been here now almost 4 years, and since I've been here, we've gone from 19 to 53 billion. So explosive growth, nowhere near what you've seen, Kelsey. But as a relatively smaller firm that has to be nimble and redirect resources where necessary, we've seen this M&A train just sort of take off and run away, both internal, what Mike's doing, and external, what I've been focused on. And sometimes you have to reallocate talent where we're seeing the most growth. And I've gotten to see the two of you settle into these new roles, and in my opinion, at least, find maybe corner a niche that we didn't even know existed going into this. So I think it's unique that we are bringing C-suite level talent to these integrations and dedicating both of you into something that has been not just important for us, but really important for these sellers. So let's kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of what you guys do, because we've called it the A-team, we've called it sort of a strike force, but this stool that we put in front of the advisor, how do we, from the moment an LOI is signed, how does the involvement of the two of you come in, and maybe talk specifically at the role that you play with not only the seller, but also the broader organization and those stakeholders. So Alex, you want to start?
Sure. And as you mentioned, Michael, you describe it, I think, perfectly as a four-legged stool. And so the prospective seller is really sitting on that stool, and the four legs are really the four work streams that occur simultaneously as we go through the process between signing the LOI and simultaneously closing and going live with the new partnership as part of Carson. And so one of those legs is talent, and that's led by Kelsey. And I think what people maybe don't always understand is the biggest benefit of an acquisition, past financial considerations, at least for us, is the expansion of our talent opportunity. I think it's not talked about that much, but it's the most important thing. Because what are we if we don't have great talent on our team to serve our clients, to serve our constituents, and to provide value to our shareholders? Another of the four legs is integration. A third is transitions, so actually moving assets when the time comes right. And then the fourth and biggest component during that 3-month window is really financial and legal due diligence, which our M&A team, of course, leads that effort. And I'm there to help the owners sort of navigate through all of it and help them understand, if you will, what they're going to be going through over that 3-month period of time. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that in a second, but a lot of it is really emotional, psychological, the inevitable ups and downs that are going to occur as you're navigating your team through a complex process like this. And it's really gratifying to see the result in the end, because we've done a great job historically, I think, of helping people get from A to B and get across the finish line.
And Alex, on that point, Michael, you mentioned that, Carson, the way we approach this is we have C-suite involved. And I do just want to highlight like how involved, right? Because there's always that, a lot of firms will say, oh, our C-suite's really involved. You two, Alex and Kelsey, you're flying out and being in the office before, during due diligence, during the lead up. You are sitting knee to knee with these firms, having these conversations. And Alex, as it pertains to you, and you kind of hit on this, where I think, you having been a seller in the past, you having gone through this process, it's twofold. Not only are you able to connect with these sellers and you and them have this connection, what I appreciate too is when we talk about the C-suite involvement, we have our weekly M&A meeting, and you're a part of that. What you bring to our team, right? Because a lot of us on the M&A team, we haven't personally sold a business before, so we haven't emotionally gone through this. You always ground our conversations, and guys, this is how that is going to, in the seller's mind, this is how they're going to perceive that. This is what they're living through. This is what's tugging on their heartstrings. This is how they're mentally thinking through this transaction. So when you guys say X, what they're hearing is Y. And I think that level of just that experience that you bring, it connects to the seller, but more selfishly for me, you kind of help us and ground our conversations in that weekly meeting. So having kind of that voice is massive. Speak to that a little bit on how you're able to kind of connect that past experience to both the sellers and to the internal teams here at Carson. Because I think that's a big factor.
Yeah, now I'm going to add on that too, Mike, because we're on air, so I guess we'll call it the freak out moments, right? The seller is going to have a few freak out moments, and those will increase in both severity and intensity the closer they get to the transaction. Yeah. So Alex, on that same note, if maybe you could just give an example of one of those calls that you've taken from a seller that's having maybe a little bit of a panic moment.
I think what people don't necessarily understand is that this really is, if you think about it, one of life's biggest moments for a seller. And if you think about the majority of opportunities that we see, Michael and Mike, these are companies that have been built over a 30-year period of time. A lot of blood, sweat, tears, effort have gone into building a wonderful business, and it's coming to a conclusion in terms of the current ownership. And I think people just don't really understand that life moment, the amount of pressure, the amount of stress, the amount of tension it creates. If you're a seller, you might be thinking to yourself, is this the right opportunity? Is this the right partner? Am I doing the best I can possibly do for my family, for my constituents, for my shareholders, for my employees, for my partners? In the end, the answer is, yeah, it is. And it's a great opportunity. And it doesn't end there. We're not acquiring companies to come in and make major, A to Z, nuts to bolts changes. We are acquiring successful companies, and we want to continue that success. And really, the best way to continue that success is for that team to continue to do all the wonderful things they've done and they've built over the last 30-year period of time. And the worst thing we could do is come in and sort of screw that up, so to speak. So it's helping the owners understand that this is a major moment, that they are going to second guess. They are going to have questions about, does this make sense for me? Does this make sense for my family, the people that I care about? And helping to help them understand and get through that, I think, is really important.
You might be a licensed therapist by the end of this, right? I think you
Without
probably
a doubt.
play that role a lot in this.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody is going to have that moment, and it's usually not happening during work hours, oftentimes, the best person for them to be calling is probably not the person that's overseeing financial due diligence or the attorney that's working on a purchase agreement. It's somebody that can be the objective third party. And Alex, you've got a gift for it. So I am very grateful we have you on this team.
Well, I think sometimes too, there are advisors that are helping them with the various aspects of a sale haven't been through the process either, meaning they haven't personally gone through a sale or something like that. So I do think we have a unique perspective, and the fact that I get to partner with Kelsey and others like Nick Engelbart and Lance Hunt, who are just true professionals in our industry, we all have a high care factor. And I think, Omani Carson, our founder, one of his phrases I've always loved is that words matter. And I'll use a word right now, and that word is partner. You read a lot of things and you think, oh, it's an acquisition and everything's going to change and they're not going to care about what we used to do. We care big time. We're bringing new partners to our organization. We're bringing former owners of their company that now become owners of Carson Group. They are our partners, and we treat them like our partners. And we know that our success is tied to their continued success. Period. Full stop. Words matter, and the word partner is very important to us. And for us to have the ability to convey that to these folks is a real privilege.
Yeah. Well, it comes through loud and clear.
Yeah.
And for our listeners who are maybe part of an M&A team, all right, and especially if you're on the buy side, I was in a deal, and it was a large acquisition, and I was mainly, so there was a partnership. There was multiple partners in this business. There was one that was leading the negotiation. That was their role. They were leading all of the deal conversations. And towards the end, we were kind of running into a lot of roadblocks and just like communication breakdowns. And like I was trying to figure out why. Like there was some, like all of a sudden we were just it felt like we were spinning our wheels a lot. So I had a conversation with this leader, and we kind of got to at the end of the conversation, the leader said, Mike, I think I realized I have been trying to make sure that this deal accomplishes everything for all the different partners, and they're all coming to me with their feedback, and my family and my kids, and we're going through all of this. I don't even know what I want out of this deal, and I kind of lost track of why we're doing it. And it was this very human moment of sometimes in these deals, we sometimes forget that we're all humans doing them. And it's not just the numbers and the Excel spreadsheets and the due diligence. And that's a part that is it's really important to keep in mind. And I think going back and sometimes refocusing on the why does it feel like we're spinning our wheels here? Why does it feel like everything is a conflict instead of working together? It was the first time that I think it was that it was said out loud. And then it was the first time he had said it out loud that I've been working for everyone else. I really don't even know why I'm doing it, which, going back to your point, Alex, on having those conversations and being able to connect with that person in that way can sometimes be the differentiator between a deal kind of getting through the finish line or sometimes fizzling out or spinning around for a long period of time.
That's a perfect segue to you, Kelsey, on the talent inside of those offices, because for advisors, one of the favorite parts about the management calls, when we first get to introduce Carson to them and learn about what they're trying to accomplish, there's a theme or a through line that we usually hear. I want added capabilities for my clients. I want them to have access to a broader array of services than they currently do. I need to be financially taken care of and feel like I am emotionally fulfilled going forward. And then finally, it's my stakeholders. I need my stakeholders to have a future. And that can be doing what they're doing with a larger organization. It can be upward mobility. It can be maybe flexing a muscle they never knew they had. But can you talk about what you do and sort of how you approach that on-site? Because usually that's, in general, within 2 to 3 weeks of a signed LOI for us, we're on-site. So talk about how you kind of prepare for that, how you go in, and what you're hoping to accomplish by being on-site in the seller's office.
Yeah, and I think before we did that, so I'll even start before that we were on site, that was the hard thing, is we were learning about these offices through spreadsheets, right? And that gave us no insight. That gave us no part of the why behind a lot of this. And so when we kind of newly formed this group, that was where we knew we need talent to lead these conversations, because this isn't just an acquisition, right? These are people that are going through arguably maybe the biggest change for them, right? Especially the owners, for sure, but they're people as well. And so That is where we go on site. And it is not just about going on site and meeting them in person. We want to be in their office. We want to understand what the client experience is when they walk in. We want to see where people sit. We want to see their conference rooms. We want to talk to them face to face, because I can read a job description, but I want to hear it from them on what they do every day, because what comes from that is their joy, their excitement, what really lights them up. And I think that's the special thing about these firms that we acquire. Each have their own unique culture, each have their own unique skill set, and we get to learn about them. So it's truly fun. We get to talk, at a big part of my role is to talk about the people, which is fantastic. And I get to hear from G1s, every person on their team, where they're really great at, what they really enjoy doing. And the funny thing is, these G1s, they know what it's going to look like post deal. But then when I get to come in and say, here's how we could use them even a bigger part of Carson, or man, if they're a SME in here, I could really use them on this team over here. And their career path just exponentially gets bigger, right? And so that's the fun part of putting kind of this team on site, is then we learn about them. So then in the follow-up meetings, we take this back to our entire company, everyone involved in the transition. And so we're going through each name and we say, yep, this is their strengths. Oh, this person's in ops now. They may want to become an advisor. Let's keep that in mind for their career path. So we know every person, every leader. And of course, it comes with follow-up conversations as well. But that's really helped us help with talking points for the G1s. Hey, Kelsey, can you help me tell my team? Hey, can you help me talk to this one person? And now I know them. I sat across from them. Yep, you know what? I'm going to call them right now. And let's walk through it together. And it just makes the process easier. It makes the unknowns a little bit easier to navigate. And that's where the closer we can get with these G1s in the offices before go live, the easier of transition it is, right? They know us, we know them. And it just helps everyone's fears a little bit. Because one of the things G1s, yes, they're focused on themselves. They really are focused on their team. And they have so much care that's where I think we can step in and do that one-on-one coaching therapy. I think, Mike, you nailed it. This is they're taking their legacy they built and they're putting it in our hands, right? So we want to carry that legacy with them. And that also transcends into their team as well. They're going through all this change management. Not that we underestimated it, but the emotional change management. Because we have weekly meetings, right? Here's all the spreadsheets, check the boxes, things we need to do. Man, that emotional change management is where we really get to focus on and help them through it.
Without
Kelsey,
a
I'm
doubt.
curious. So, this isn't the way we've always done deals at Carson. Right?
I was just going to bring this up, Mike. Yeah.
We didn't always take, this level of executive talent into the office and do an on-site before. It's something we've started doing really, maybe a year and a half ago and have continued to do. Mm-hmm. When I'm talking to other buyers, one of the caveats they say of the downside of going in too early is you have big buyer executives coming into the office, and it scares everyone, like, oh man, and especially Kelsey, from your perspective, like HR, the buyer's HR team is coming in to have conversations, and that can sound scary. Yep. So I'm curious, how do you guys position this when you say we want to come out and meet the team? Like, what is the positioning? What do you tell the seller to tell their team? And then what is kind of the goal for you with the people on when you leave, when you go on your flight home? Like, what do you want them feeling when you've left? How does that go?
Mike's asking how you avoid being scary, Kelsey.
Yes. How do you avoid being? You seem so scary, right?
Yeah. Right. No, that's a great question. How do we position it when we're coming out there? Is, hey, we want to get to know you. We want to get to know you, your people. We want to understand you, right? We want to understand your processes, your workflows. We want to really get to know every stakeholder, how long they've been at the company. Again, it's fun to see. Again, we have job descriptions. When you meet them and you're like, I greet clients. This is what I do. I know every client by heart. You start to get to know them a little better. So hopefully people don't find it scary. I do understand that perspective. And then when we're on site, it's really fun to see. Again, I think the first 5 minutes is the most fun. Everyone
agree.
comes out of the office. We shake everyone's hand. We talk about things, usually more personal things, right? Talk about family, talk about hobbies. And then we kind of, start talking about the roles and things like that. But if there are any fears, I think being on site, that's another big reason we're on site, is we get to really sit next to them on the table and tell them about who we are. And I've done talking points for firm owners on how to talk about this change. And I don't fluff them, right? This is something, hey, we're going to go through a lot of change here. Here's why. It's always important, I think, of that G1, that seller, to tell their team the why. And then we get to help them with, talking about the tactical things around your role is going to look like this. But now, guess what? You have added support. You have added community. You're the only director of ops on the team. Guess what? You're going to have 30 more that you can talk to and work with. And again, quite often we find stakeholders that we have plugged, not only just within their firm, into the broader Carson. So if they have expertise in other areas, they get to expand, and their career path gets to expand with them. So it's really fun. We do lunch, usually do a dinner, and really get to know them. On the way home, I truly hope that the office feels relieved. I hope they feel like, man, those are just some really good people that have our best interest at heart. And I can see where I fit in. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like Carson, I can see is big and scary, which is so funny thinking about where I started. But I want them to feel like I can fit into that, and I see how my value is going to be recognized, because that's what they want to hear too. I don't want to get lost in a bigger firm. They need to also be recognized, and I want to make sure that they feel that we know them. And I think we do. So
it's so fun too that when you do that on site, and you made a point about reading job descriptions and kind of seeing them on a spreadsheet, and there's a lot of truth to that. And then you get in on site and you find out just how accurate those spreadsheets or the job descriptions are. Because I always love when we're sitting there and you kind of say, all right, my understanding is this is what you do. And they say, well, yes, or they say, no, I don't do that at all. Yeah. And there's a disconnect between the advisor and support staff. Yeah. Or even better, and that's important, because we can address that and adjust our expectations up front. But even better is when we're on site and we find that diamond that we had no idea we were going to get. And sometimes it's not what you expect. I like Micah in our total wealth acquisition. Yeah. I mean, everybody comes back and everybody is singing the praises of Micah. And Lance in particular is like, we found somebody that we've got to use. There is more that he can offer than we anticipated. Yep. And that's a whole different level of gratification, I think, for us as an organization, is to find that talent ahead of time or unexpectedly, and realize that we're getting more than just what we expected.
I think the other thing that's really important is by being there in their office, we are demonstrating one of the core pillars of Carson, which is our sense of community. And the fact is, after we've left on the airplane ride home, we know for certainty that they know that they are becoming part of an organization that values community, that values a collaboration and working together, and they know they can be a significant part of that as a new office joining our partnership. That is, I think, one of the most important things that we can convey, is that yes, they have their regular role, but they have the opportunity to expand those horizons in so many different meaningful ways by being part of a larger community, by being part of a larger organization that is growing at the same clip or so to what they've been able to accomplish as well.
And I was just going to add one thing. The beautiful thing is too, sometimes we find those stakeholders and we sit down and they walk us through how they've built Salesforce, and we're like, hold the phone. That is awesome. And we want to take that to Carson. And so it's not just them fitting into our company or we're learning from them too. And each firm, right, is successful. And that's why we're talking to them. But that's been the most fun part, is we take back some of the stuff that we learn and we incorporate it into our ways to make further acquisitions better. And so that's the fun part too, is we get better every time we do this. And I think it takes that in-person deep dive, because if I ask any firm owner who has up-to-date job descriptions that are accurate, nobody better raise their hand, because it's not true.
Right.
And so a lot of times they don't, not to their fault, but they don't take the time to really let's accurately document, and what else can you do? Sometimes it comes out when we're talking to them. And because now that we have we have M&A, we have investments, we have technology, I find out that an ops person has a mind for technology and they're really good. We can use that, right? And so that's kind of the fun part of getting to know them really well.
It is. All right, so let's dive. I want to tackle the title of this episode, which is sort of behind the 30-day move. And let's define it, because I think, Mike, you nailed it, and that these two were not always as intimately involved as they are now. And I think it is no surprise that when you look at our most successful transitions, these are people that are upwards of $500 million in assets that are moving 100% of those assets inside of 30 days. So I think we now have 4 different examples of this at least. Mm-hmm. It coincides with this 4-legged stool, or this A-team that we've talked about, Alex, with you and Kelsey and Nick and Brad and Elliot and Lance. So let's talk about what that means, and in your two opinion, why has that been? What has been most critical to the success of these advisors moving over 100% of their assets? And what do I mean when I say over 100% of their assets inside of 30 days? So who wants to start with that? That was a big topic.
I'll give it a shot, and I know Kelsey will fill in, of course. I would say there's a couple of key things. One is, it can be overwhelming to think about sitting on top of the 4-legged stool and the fact that you're going to have 4 simultaneous work streams going on, and you've got this going on over, say, a 90-day period of time. We have a process, and I think the owners that are successful in transitioning are the case because we follow it. And no one would say our process is the best. We just have had experience doing it. And as Kelsey said a few minutes ago, we learn from every opportunity. We go back and we make our process even better. But we have now 60 plus people and counting behind the scenes that are involved in every aspect of those 4 different work streams simultaneously. And if we keep on track, that's a key success factor. The second thing I would say is the owners, if they're focused, if they're executing on their plan simultaneously with our 4 work streams, that's going to be huge. The third thing I would say is I think every owner I've been involved with made their decision before they signed their LOI. And yes, you're going through that 90-day period and doing due diligence to prove everything out. And could something, make the deal fall through? Perhaps. But I would say in the vast majority of cases, the owners made their mind up by the time they signed the LOI. So that 90 days period from then on, it's critical to get their team on board, and it's critical to have conversations, if appropriate, with their clients in advance.
This is exactly right.
If their clients are all ready to go, I can think of one case, a $500 million firm talked to 98% of their clients before the close of the transaction. So on day one, when all the documents went out for paperwork to be signed, within a week, half was back. Just incredible movement. And, within 30 days, they had over 100% of their assets moved over to Carson. And so it was a tremendous success from every different direction you look at. But it's because the owners executed so well. They had positioning conversations ahead of time with clients. Their team was on board. There was nothing left to chance, and we were able to go on day one and execute.
So let's touch on this real quick before I turn it over to you, Kelsey, because there are still advisors that are surprised, and I should caveat this by saying we will introduce a seller to outside legal counsel that will review not only the privacy policies, but also the agreements in place to make sure that advisors can have conversations. But it's very rare for an independent RIA to not be able to talk to their clients in advance of a move, especially if they're not associated with a financial institution like a bank or a credit union or an OSJ. So if they are independently operated, generally speaking, they can talk to whatever clients whenever they want to. So it is part of our recommendation, if they are allowed to, that they are having those conversations, to your point, as soon as possible, so that on the day we go live, which is also the day we close, because we will one-stage close here at Carson, that assets are in motion because the clients are already expecting to see those DocuSigns turn up in their inbox. So that's certainly been a critical part of our success. Kelsey, just if you could build on what Alex had said.
Yeah, I think Alex did a great job of capturing it. And I just want to reiterate, like positioning themselves with the internal team. So not always do we see it where the G1s can let, their people under the tent, which is in some cases totally understandable. But the more you can, because again, it's a shock. We're selling the company, we're joining Carson. The G1s are focused on the clients, right? And how to show up with the clients, but really their team is the one that's going to enter in a period of 10 weeks where they are literally just doing paperwork, and it's a lot of work. And so they're key to making that transition very quick and getting those assets transferred. So to Alex's point, it's a full team effort. And the more you can get people to buy in on the why, they're going to put in those extra hours. They're going to put in I know, we're trying to hit a goal of transitioning assets because it is a lot of work. And that's what we always hear. What is the hardest part of transition, right? It's that first 30, 60, 90 days. So if you can get your team understood, get them prepped, focus on them during it, because we can help focus on them as well. But if that leader on site is leading the troops there, it makes it so much better, and it makes it a lot quicker for the assets to come over.
Yeah.
So, it's that emotional change management again. You got to make sure
absolutely
is bought in. Yeah.
And it is a lot of work. I think anybody that tells you transition is easy is either lying or they've never been through it. But I also think it's important to note that it is simpler than it used to be. Yeah. So we had an office, Wells Tricasso, that joined us in Akron, and there was concern. It's been a while since they've gone through a transition, and they remember the days, and I'm sure all four of us remember the days of filling the conference room table with the stacks of paperwork and needing every single one of those to get a wet signature, whether it's through like a client signing event or individually going and knocking on doors. That world has changed. So we should clarify that now the vast majority of the time, the client information is being ingested by a third party that is then helping the seller prepare the paperwork, and DocuSigns are going out on day one. It's not the advisor driving to the homes or workplaces. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time.
Yeah, and maybe I should just clarify too, because while that's going on, they're also learning our new processes.
That's right.
Our new training. So it's the entire experience. And again, it's totally doable, and they're willing to take that on. It's just making sure that they're brought in, that they're recognized for their work, and they're just prepped for it. So
yeah, and that's a good point, Kelsey, because if the transition itself might be easier, but we are talking about a transaction. So that also entails the signing of the purchase agreement and legal considerations. It entails us onboarding new stakeholders, because these advisors and their teams become our teammates and peers. Yep. So they're learning our benefits and signing up for the 401k, all that kind of stuff that goes on. So even though transition may have gotten easier, there's a lot of extra stuff that goes into what a transaction entails.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
The speed of that deal going through and the assets moving, I think what we've talked about a lot in this conversation is the on-site visit. We're all learning a lot about each other, and you're spending time. But even at a higher level, deals work better when there is trust and there's a relationship that's built. And there is no better way to do that than getting knee to knee in person, right? Having that conversation. It establishes this level, whether we recognize it or not, of a little bit of trust, a little bit deeper relationship. And that is going to lead to, when you're going through the hard stuff, because the transition still is hard. It's gotten a lot easier, but there's a lot of work involved. It happens and it works better with that level of trust that's been built. I think, Kelsey and Alex, would you agree that kind of being out there in person, there's just no replacement for that. You can't establish that over a Zoom call. You can't establish that by looking at a spreadsheet. It's got to be that on-site, in-person conversation.
100%. And I think that was the great addition of when we started adding that, where we fly out, we spend a couple days, we're, your point, knee to knee. There is no replacement. I think that has to happen in order for that trust to be built, for those relationships to be built. And Alex and I and the rest of the team are just the first part of that. Again, that's where the teams that support these transitions, then they take that torch as well. And so on their Zoom calls, when they're having it, that trust continues through that. When tech is on site, the trust is continuing. So we're the lucky ones that get to be on site and talk to them, bring that back, and then that trust continues to be built.
Yeah, we actually, it's a prerequisite, right? We are talking about a marriage here between two organizations. Like we have never had a deal that has not involved both them visiting us and spending time to see who we are and learn our people, and us being on site with them. I think we are all totally in agreement here. Like you cannot do something like this and do it through a phone call or do it through Zoom. It has to be on site at least multiple times throughout that process. And then, frankly, Alex, this is the fun part of it. You know, you get to see the other side of the transaction and you get to celebrate with people. And there is a relationship already established. So you and I are going to be out in Akron, and I'm sure some of our peers as well, celebrating the success that Doug and Ralph and Sam and Chris have had in getting the assets over and now being part of this family.
You bet.
So let's talk more just about themes that you guys have seen, or what advice would you offer to a seller as they start thinking through not just the transaction, but the communication plan, both internally in their stake or with their stakeholders and also with the client base. So Kelsey, if you want to handle maybe what should they start thinking about now before they approach the stakeholders? And then Alex, you kind of talk about those client conversations in a moment.
Yeah, I would say the common themes, being vulnerable through this process, because through this process, we're going to learn a lot about you as a G1 and a seller. You're going to learn a lot about us, but the more I can understand what's keeping you up at night, what's distracting you, most of the time we can solve those issues. I would also say too, at the very beginning, there's a lot of information coming at you, right? And so we're going to do our best to make sure to chunk it up so that's a little bit more digestible. But I would say some of the things that seem like a big deal now, right? Like usually on the other end aren't as big of a deal. And so, and it might be a big deal to them and not to their team. And so that's what I would suggest. Write down the stuff that you don't understand or don't agree with, or maybe I just have questions on why we're doing it this way, Kelsey, and have that conversation. Be ready to have it, but also be ready for change. That would be my one thing, is not everything will stay exactly the same. It just can't, right? And so being open enough to admit that, saying, hey, what are the things that I'm really willing to be flexible on? And what are the things that are really important? If we know that up front, we can have better conversations with you and your team. And I know when Alex and I were prepping for this, be willing to adapt to our processes. And not that we're not going to learn from you and how you do things, but there's a reason why, because we have how many acquisitions under our belt, and it's tried and true that this is a great process to go at. So I would say bring their team as quickly under the tent as they can, help them understand, get their feedback, give it to us. We can also pick up the phone and have conversations. I think we mentioned at the beginning of the call, sometimes it's, what does my 401k look like? Sometimes it's as simple as, what is my PTO look like? That truly keeps them up at night. And I can really answer that with a quick call and say, here's what it looks like. And so those are the things that sometimes are overlooked, but cause the greatest stress for the team, because they're right, that affects them directly. So we want to make sure that they get that answer. And again, I think I mentioned it, being vulnerable with us, like help us understand what's going on in your head or what you're thinking about right now. And hopefully most times we can try to bring you resolution on that.
I love your comment on change, Kelsey, because I think too, what I would recommend to the seller is if there's a process that we're talking about and you're instantly like, no, we can't do it that way. It has to be the way we've done. Come prepared with the why that can't change. Because oftentimes what we find is, okay, that process actually can change. What you're concerned about is how it affects X, Y, Z, and we can come up with a solution that still fits and can still work and accomplishes your end goal. It really wasn't the process or this specific thing that was the issue. It was the end in mind. And so coming prepared with the why and how that affects things, the sellers that are able to do that, this process is way more collaborative, because odds are we can find something that will solve for what you're trying to solve for. It just might not be the exact way you've done it historically, right?
And one thing, Mike, I'll add is most of the times when they understand, if they just see a process and they're like, oh, Carson said they can't do it. If they truly have that conversation, they understand, then they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Why we wouldn't do it that way. So it's just that conversation and the communication between us and the sellers.
Exactly.
Alex, you've seen that firsthand too. I mean, because sometimes sometimes there is a better way to do things that we are learning from, or maybe a different idea. So I like investment management is one that historically had been at least a conversation that we need to have on expectations and processes. And sometimes the answer is, well, we can do it that way, but this is the ramification of that. So this is what your quality of life would be like if we were to pursue this to its logical end. So I'll ask the same question to you. What are the things that people should be thinking about, a seller, when they're preparing themselves to have conversations with clients? And also just any themes that you have seen that would be important for a seller to start thinking about today?
So a couple of things. One, with respect to conversations with clients, owners and their advisors typically have a lot of anxiety about it leading up to when they actually start having the conversations. And if you think about it, it makes sense. What do they do for a living? They help clients through their financial planning process to deal with their clients' life events, with changes that are coming for their clients. They're accustomed to doing that every day of the week. What they're not accustomed to doing is talking about changes that they're going to go through. And so I think if you frame it around the conversation of, you've been a valued client for, let's just say 15 years. We've done a lot of things together, and you remind your clients of all the things that you've done to help them plan for their retirement, educate their children, plan for other various life events. You're doing the same thing as an owner in terms of the future of your company and why this partnership with Carson makes sense. Whether it's additional tools in my tool belt, whether it's I want to provide, a legacy for my family, whatever the topic is, if you frame it that way, that helps you to be prepared for those conversations. And the fact of the matter is your clients are for you. You've built a great relationship with them. They value you as their trusted financial advisor. They want you to succeed just as much as they want to succeed. And so they're going to actually be happy and in many cases relieved that you're actually putting a plan in motion, given your age, given the level of experience you've had and so forth. It's a welcome conversation on the part of clients. The second thing I would say, and you briefly touched on this, Michael, with respect to investments. Yes, you may have the greatest, best way to manage investments of all time. However, what are you in the business of doing? How did you build your firm? How did you generate year-over-year growth of revenue? It wasn't because of your pristine investment management. It was your ability to attract and bring in new clients and add revenue to your business and continue to grow it on a go-forward basis. That's really what the name of the game is. And when you have the opportunity to join a firm like Carson and have access to terrific investment experts like Sonu Varghese and Ryan Dietrich, I mean, my goodness, why wouldn't you want to embrace and take advantage of that? And so it just, having access to a larger platform of opportunity, of choices to be able to implement for your clients only makes that experience for them in the long run better. Yeah.
And it's the sooner an advisor or a business owner kind of makes that transition mentally, and they are more willing to not just adopt, but learn from the broader community, the quicker they're going to be on the other side of the angst of a transition.
You bet.
And your point about the client communications, Alex, there are very few absolutes in this business, but I think we can say 100% of the time, advisors have more angst around that conversation than in actuality they should. Those conversations are always simpler and cleaner than they perceive that they're going to be. So I'll just share a quick story with once you sort of make the transition to the other side. So Trey Wilty in our Kansas City office is a friend of mine and I think one of the best advisors in this business. He's a great example of somebody that sort of got through it and turned to his love, which is growing his client base, serving his existing clients, but also he's really talented at finding new opportunities for us. And last night I'm making dinner for the kids and I got a call from him. He met with $1.5 billion firm and they asked him, they said, why did you choose to transact with Carson? Give us your Carson pitch. And he goes, Michael, I was sitting there on the phone and I went, oh, you bet, like, here we go. And to see that level of engagement and excitement around the community he's a part of is really not just gratifying, but just like it's heartwarming for me. Like I get a little choked up when I see somebody that has sort of bought into the process and is just glad that they're now part of this family. And I think having you two involved with these opportunities as early as you are and as intimately as you are has really led to our success rate, maybe not going up, but seeing that other side of the transaction happen a lot sooner than it used to. So I think you guys have been just a godsend to this process. All right, we are at 49 minutes. That went like that. So any final thoughts or things that you want to impart, or lightning round, any last things that you'd want to just let a listener know before we sign off for today? Kelsey?
Oh, of course you picked me. No, I was just going to say, I agree. I think inserting Alex and I and the rest of the team early in the process has really helped. And I mean, we have a star-packed team here at Carson. Again, everybody's involved with the transition from technology to marketing to invest. So it truly is an honor to be on this team. And again, I feel very lucky that we get to be at the front of it, right? We get to go on site. We get to form those relationships from the beginning. And I really, what hits me sometimes is when I talk to other people, and sometimes, Michael, like the people that join your team in the M&A space, what we're doing is really unique because we are so focused. And to me, it's table stakes. Like, of course we want to know our firms, and of course we want to know our people. So I am proud that that's how much we focus on it and how many resources we put to it. So it's been really fun, and traveling with all of us and Alex and you and Michael to do this has been really great. So, and more than that, it's just working with these firms, right? We get to help them through one of the biggest changes in their career. For the G1s, maybe their biggest. So that's where it's been really fun to be a part of it.
Kelsey, we had Lisa Van Arsdale on last month and talked all about G2 development and strategy around that. And as part of that conversation, you know, we had asked what's a takeaway or something that you have noticed in your first 6 weeks or whatever it was at Carson. And she goes, I think what I was not quite prepared for was I have conversations with all these offices and they're all happy. Like they all are glad they did it. And she goes, it just reinforces that I made the right choice in joining this family. It's neat seeing the enthusiasm and the excitement amongst our offices. So,
and just talking about Lisa, I mean, that's the additional resources we're investing, right? She's a former firm owner herself, so she's been in their shoes. And now she is focused on G2, G3 developed specifically, right? Career framework, career pathing. So that's how much we're invested in these offices.
Yeah. Alex, any last words?
Yeah, one of my favorite phrases is "we're here to help." And, I would just say my parting comment would be, I think your viewers can see through the four of us how much we appreciate the opportunity to be of service at a company like this. And the best thing we can do is venture out there and meet prospective sellers and meet their teams and help them see how excited we are about the opportunity with our company and hopeful that they will embrace that and feel the same way. And if we do that right every time, we're going to continue to have success. We're going to continue to build a great opportunity. We're going to continue to move this company well into the future and make this an organization that people can continue to be very proud to be associated with.
Amen, Alex.
Yeah.
Mike, last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the summary, if you're a buyer, is find your top talented people, and we have that in Alex and Kelsey, but make sure they are also just amazing people. That's what we have. Like the thing we're blessed with is that our top talent are also amazing people. So when we get in on site and when we're in person, it is such a natural, you feel like you're talking to a friend you've had for 20 years. You feel it's such a great conversation. So when you have those people, if you're a buyer, bring them into the fold, include them, like have them as part of the process, because having the talent there and having those conversations is always a good thing. And you add on top the relationship you're building, it's a recipe for success.
I like how your final thought is you're actually offering advice to our competitors, but there's truth to that.
Yeah. In my mind, it's our advisors around the country that are doing their own acquisition. So yes, it's always the view that you have, right? Yeah.
All right, guys. Hey, Kelsey, Alex, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for all you do for our sellers.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You too.